So, this is Guru Pashupati. Welcome to these series where I'm going to be reading about the Bhagavad-Gita. I'm going to be reading verses from it in English so that you can, understand what's in it, because a lot of people struggle with the Sanskrit version. They don't really understand. So I'm going to give you a fluid translation of it. And it's going to be like a long dialogue. The Bhagavad-Gita is basically a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna when they're assembled on the battlefield. And there's this guy who can see through time and space called Sanjaya. And Sanjaya is giving Dhritarashtra, who's the blind king, who is also Arjuna's uncle, he's giving him like a running commentary of what's happening here on the battlefield. He's curious to know. And Sanjay has this vision to see. Okay. So, it starts with what Sanjaya saw. And Sanjaya sees that, everybody's assembled and there's all these people, and I'm not going to get into that. And very poetically explains how the battle formations are there, and they have various weapons and all that stuff. And that's like the first 10 verses. And then, it goes on explaining about the trumpets and the whole very detailed explanation of what the battlefield looks like. And how Krishna blew his conch shell, and how, the hearts of the enemies were shattered by it and all that stuff. And then he describes what conversation Arjuna starts having. So, Arjuna requests Krishna, he says, hey, please, can you take my chariot and place it between the armies? So I want to see both my side and their side. I want to look properly at the soldiers who I have to kill, And, Krishna says, okay, because, Krishna is his charioteer and also his guru. So, there Arjuna observes that his, fatherly elders, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, fathers-in-law and his friends, everybody is there on the other side and he has to kill them all. And he says, Krishna, seeing all my relatives assembled here and preparing for battle, the strength drains from my limbs and my mouth becomes parched. My body trembles and my hair stands on end and my skin burns and my Gandiva bow slips from my grasp, Gandiva is the name of his bow. Krishna, I cannot keep my composure. My mind is bewildered and I see evil omens. Krishna, I see no benefit in slaying my kinsmen in this battle. Neither do I desire victory nor happiness by attaining a great kingdom. Janardana, what to speak of ruling this world? If we gained all the 3 worlds, then what happiness would be attained, because it was gained by killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Oh Madhava, great misfortune will surely come upon us if we kill our relatives, although they may be hostile towards us, It's not proper to slay the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What happiness can be desired by killing them, our own people, Janardana, through the hearts of these men, although the hearts of these men are overwhelmed by greed, they cannot see the fault in betraying one's friends and the offense of murdering one's kinsmen. Why should we engage in such a terrible activity, knowing the consequences? By destroying one's relatives, the family traditions are vanquished forever, and when such practices perish, unrighteousness prevails over the entire dynasty. Krishna, descendant of Rishni, when unrighteousness prevails, then the women of the family become degraded. When the women become degraded, then undesirable offspring is the result. Undesirable offspring creates dreadful conditions for both the family and the destroyer of family values. Their forefathers fall down due to discontinuation of ceremonial libations of food and water. Such terrible deeds by the destroyers of family create a population of unwanted progeny that totally annihilates all traditions of family and society. Janardana, I've heard that those who destroy family and social and spiritual values eternally reside in wretched conditions. What wickedness are we determined to commit? Simply due to our greed to enjoy royal pleasures, we are prepared to kill our own relatives. If the sons of Dhritarashtra with weapons in their hands slay me unarmed and unresisting on this battlefield, that would be considered better by me. And Arjuna cast aside his bow and arrows and sat on the chariot, and his heart is heavy with sorrow. Okay. So then, Krishna is watching the whole thing, and he says, "Hey Arjun, how has such illusion overcome you at the crucial moment? This is not appropriate for an honorable man, nor does it lead to its, higher planets. It's the cause of infamy. Give up this unmanliness. It doesn't befit you. Get up and do not yield to this petty weakness of heart." And Arjuna replied, "How can I counteract such persons as Bhishma and Drona in battle by firing arrows at those who are worthy of my respect? It's better to live in this world by begging than killing our respectable superiors. Otherwise, the wealth and property that we enjoy in this world will be tainted with their blood. I do not know what is better for us, to conquer them or be conquered by them. If we slay the sons of Dhritarashtra who are assembled here before us, I have no desire to live. My natural propensity as a warrior is weakening. I am bewildered as to what is righteous. Kindly tell me what is more beneficial for me. I am your disciple. I am surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Even if I gain a substantial kingdom beyond compare and the power of demigods, I see nothing that can remove this grief that is eroding my senses." And Krishna is like watching this and looking at it. And I felt that this is so familiar, As a guru myself, I get a lot of crying like this. Yeah. So he says, "Krishna, Govinda, I will not fight," and then he just goes silent. And, Krishna is like smiling. He's like, there was a time that neither you nor I nor all these warriors existed. And, as the Atman, which is, the unit of consciousness which is within us, the consciousness passes through the bodily transformations of childhood, youth and old age, and it migrates from one body to the other at the time of death. And the wise are never deluded by this transition. A sober man who is equipoised in both pleasure and pain and remains undisturbed is certainly qualified for liberation. Of that which is temporary, there is no eternal existence. Of that which is eternal, there is no destruction or change. Seers of the truth have realized the constitutional position of both. Now, know for certain that individual consciousness which pervades the whole body is imperishable. Okay? Nothing can destroy the indestructible Atman. Embodied consciousness is eternal, imperishable and infinite. Only the material body is perishable. So fight. The Atman neither takes birth nor dies at any time. It's never been created, nor will it ever be created. It is unborn, eternal, indestructible and timeless. It is not destroyed when the material body is destroyed. So considering that the individual unit of consciousness is eternal, unborn, imperishable and indestructible, how can a person kill anyone? And whom does he kill? Just as one removes old clothes and accepts new ones, similarly the Atman gives up old bodies and accepts new bodies. Weapons cannot cut the Atman, it cannot be burned by fire, water cannot wet it, and hair cannot dry it. It is indestructible, incombustible, insoluble, and cannot be withered. It is eternal, all-pervading, unchanging, immovable, and primeval. It is said that it is imperceptible, inconceivable, and immutable. Thus, understanding the nature of Atman, it is inappropriate for you to cry like this. Even if you believe that the individual consciousness is eternally subject to birth and death, still you have no reason to cry, he tells Arjuna. So, for one who is born, death is certain. For one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, you should not grieve over that which is inevitable. O Bharata, all living beings are unmanifest before birth. Bharata, which is another name for Arjuna. All living beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest between birth and death, and again unmanifest after death. Then why are you crying? Some consider the individual consciousness unit called Atman as astounding. They describe it as astounding and they hear of it as astounding. And some, even after hearing about it, have no knowledge about it. So, the eternal individual consciousness that dwells within the bodies of all beings can never be killed. So stop crying. Moreover, considering your natural duty, you should not waver, as there is no better course of action for a warrior than a battle to uphold righteousness. The most fortunate warriors are favored with the opportunity to engage in such a war, which has come of its own accord to you. It's an open door to the higher planets, the what do you call it, the Swargas. No? The Swargas are not here, they're in other planets, right? That's what we believe. But if you decide not to take place in this war of righteousness, your principles of dharma will be lost, fame will abandon you, impiety will be incurred. For time to come, people will speak of your infamy, and for one who is great, infamy is worse than death. So, illustrious warriors will believe that you ceased fighting out of fear. You will fall into disgrace in the eyes of those that hold you in great esteem. Your enemies will insult you with slanderous words, condemning your prowess. What could be more painful than that? If you're killed, you'll attain the higher planets. And if you're victorious, you'll enjoy the earth. So be confident of your success. Stand up and fight. You can't lose in any way. Maintain equanimity when faced with happiness and distress, gain and loss, victory and defeat. And fight. And in this way, we will not incur impiety. I have revealed to you the knowledge of Atman. Now, here how to act upon this knowledge, through which you will be able to release yourself from this bondage of action. There is no loss, nor is there any diminution of result in performing dharma. Even the slightest effort saves one from the greatest fear. So, spiritual intelligence is one-pointed. However, the intelligence of those that desire mundane enjoyment is many-branched. Those of small intelligence misinterpret the Vedas and claim that there is no divine principle in creation. Thus, they glorify those statements that are pleasing to the senses. Because their hearts are filled with selfish desires and the goal is Swargas, higher planets, they prescribe many rituals that award higher birth, wealth and power and lead to enjoyment and opulence. By such ideas, these persons contemplating sense gratification and mundane pleasures, they do not attain the resolve to fix their mind on the Supreme. So, the Vedas deal with subjects in Rajas, Tamas and Sattva, the three modes of the three gunas. Arjuna, become free from duality. Be situated in a state of pure spiritual consciousness. Be free from the pursuits for gain and preservation, and you will transcend these three gunas. A large lake serves all the purposes served by a small pond. Similarly, one who is the knower of the absolute truth realizes all the purposes found in the Vedas. Your right is to perform your work, but never to the results. Never be motivated by the results of your actions. nor should you be attached to not performing your prescribed duties. Okay? So, don't get, just do your job. Stand firm in yoga, perform your activities, giving up attachment, and be equipoised in success and failure. This balance is called yoga, to be equipoised in success and failure. So, activities looking for fruits are far inferior to the yoga of wisdom. Therefore, take shelter in the wisdom of equanimity. Those that are motivated by fruits of their actions are misers. A wise man refrains from performing both good and bad actions in the world. They engage in yoga, as yoga is the best of all activities. The wise give up the results of their action and thus liberate themselves from the bondage of material birth and death. They attain the plane beyond all suffering. Once your intelligence is able to pass through the dense jungle of illusion, you will become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is yet to be heard. When your mind is no longer affected by false interpretations of the Vedas, then you will attain the perfect state of yoga. So your mind is like a garden, anything can come and sit in it. And now or the future, but you will not be, whatever is growing in your mind, you will be indifferent to it. And that's very important. That silence is very important. Inner silence. So, Arjuna gets very curious. 1 minute. So, when your mind is no longer affected by the false interpretations of these Vedas, you will attain the perfect stage of yoga, says Krishna. And then Arjuna gets curious. He says, what are the characteristics of that person who is perfectly situated in divine wisdom and fully absorbed in pure spiritual consciousness, which is called samadhi? How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? Then Krishna is saying, when the living being abandons all material desires that enter the mind and becomes self-satisfied within, then that person is said to be situated in divine knowledge. One whose mind remains undisturbed by distress, who has no desire for pleasure, who is free from mundane attachment, fear and anger, is a person of steady mind. One who is unattached to anything in this world and who does not become joyful or resentful on attaining good or evil is firmly established in wisdom. When one is able to withdraw the senses from sense objects, just like a tortoise withdraws its limbs, then he is firmly established in wisdom. That's why the tortoise is a spiritual symbol. An embodied living being may renounce sense objects, but the taste for enjoying them remains. However, this too ceases for the one who realizes the Supreme. The turbulent senses can forcibly steal the mind of even a wise man of sound judgment. Nobody is beyond the capacity of being stupid. Restraining all the senses, a self-controlled person should fix his mind upon me. Then he becomes firmly situated in divine knowledge. By meditating upon sense objects, one becomes attached to them. From attachment, desire appears, and from desire, anger manifests. So the more you're looking for a particular result, or the more you complain, I don't have my soulmate, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have, and people meditate on it. So they meditate upon these sense objects, the senses that are reporting something, and they keep meditating on it. Then you become attached to them. Even if they're shit, you get attached to them. And then from that attachment, desire appears, some other desire, And whenever desire comes, the next thing you do is you start getting angry that you don't have the thing that you desire. And then from that anger comes delusion. So delusion means you start, you create a new understanding of how the world works according to yourself. And then from delusion, you get bewilderment of memory. So even your memories of how you ended up here, the story of how you got here, everything will change. And once the memory is bewildered, then you lose intelligence. And when intelligence is lost, you are destroyed. So, but one who can control his mind and senses and is free from both attachment and repulsion, even in the midst of sense objects, such a person attains something called divine grace. So, even in the midst of all of this, you can live in the world, and then you are free from both attachment and repulsion as well. And then what will happen? You attain something called divine grace. Okay, it's very interesting. Once you have divine grace, all your miseries cease. Alright? And when you don't have self-control, all miseries cease, and then certainly the person who achieves that tranquil mind, he gets divine wisdom. But one who has lost all self-control cannot attain wisdom. Without wisdom, you can never meditate. And one who cannot meditate cannot achieve peace. And without peace, how can you be happy? Whichever sense the wandering mind becomes absorbed in, that sense carries away the intelligence, just like a ship at sea is swept away by a strong wind. So don't start meditating on your senses. You meditate on God, on the divine grace. Like, stay indifferent to the senses. Whatever they are reporting to you, good or bad, just remain in the center. Don't get shaken. And then you don't get swept away by anything. Whatever is happening around you, you're chilled out. Therefore, one whose senses are fully withdrawn from the sense objects is firmly established in divine wisdom. So your senses will keep on telling you, this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong. But don't believe that story. And you've got to be okay with, you've got to tolerate this. This is earth. You've got to be able to tolerate not getting what you always want, which is okay. No, what's the problem? Nothing. Because when you look for stability, when you find stability, then you want instability. When you are in instability, all you want is stability. When you are in stability, all you want is instability. So you just caught up in a cycle, So just tolerate both. Just tolerate this. And then you'll be like, oh yeah, there's something deeper here to open up to and to understand. Okay? So, that which is day for one who is self-controlled is night for all living beings. And that which is day for all living beings is night for the introspective one. Because you can see inside everything, you can see its opposite there, sitting right there. And it's a kind of meditation. Whenever your senses are showing you something amazing, that you start feeling something, like you start complaining, I'm not rich in that, and you can see there's richness in that. And if somebody is complaining, I don't have health, there is health in that. And if somebody is complaining, somebody is proud that they have health, you can see there's disease in that. It's a way of looking. You had to look at something and try to see its opposite in it. Now, such a person who is steadfast in facing the constant flow of desires and who does not strive to satisfy them attains peace. He remains unaffected, just as the ocean remains calm when the rivers enter into it. Okay, so be like the ocean. Let all these rivers of desire enter into you, and just nothing happens to you. You remain relaxed. So, one who abandons all their desires for sense indulgence, who lives free from possessiveness and is free of false ego, such a person can achieve peace. Just don't be interested whatever the senses show you. It's always showing you that there's a better way to be than how you are right now. And if you start believing that, then you become a monkey. You'll never be peaceful. Lose your peace. You won't have it. So, realize the absolute truth that none of this is true. And don't get bewildered by it. And even in the time of death, be situated here. No, all of you are going to die. All of us are going to die. Unless you learn some immortal yoga, you're going to die. So, if you are situated in this state at the time of death, then you attain something called Brahma Nirvanam, which is the abode of pure consciousness, and all your suffering ceases after that. So you have to practice it when you're alive, to stay in that state while you die. Yeah. It'll be also very hard to kill you. It'll be very hard for you to fall sick. Like something has to happen to your body, then only you'll die, So otherwise you can't really die. If you stay in this state of realizing the absolute truth that any sense indulgence, everything that comes in front of you as a goal, as a dream, as a desire, as a ambition, as that and this, if you just watch it and be calm, because all those desires are flowing into you and you're just like accepting all of them, let it all come into you, but you're not jumping up on them, you're just relaxed, then everything will flow into you. Like you're like the sea. You lie down and let all the desires come into you and don't let them disturb you emotionally. You just relax. And the one who can relax like that, this practice, such a person when they die, they achieve something called Brahma Nirvanam, where there is no more suffering. Okay, we'll stop here for today. And I'll see you in the second part. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me your feedback. What did you learn? How did you practice this? Listen to it again if you want to. And be free.